In a quiet neighborhood, there was a narrow alley that everyone feared. People said strange things happened there at night. No one ever dared to enter it after sunset. The alley was always silent, too silent. One day, a new boy moved into the neighborhood. He noticed how people avoided that alley and spoke about it in whispers. Curious and brave, he decided to uncover the truth. That night, when the streets were empty and the air felt heavy, the boy slowly walked toward the alley. His heart was beating fast, but he kept moving forward. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. Suddenly, he saw something. An old woman was sitting alone on a broken chair, right in the middle of the alley. Her face looked tired, but calm. The boy hesitated, then gathered his courage and asked, "Why are you sitting here all alone?" The old woman looked at him and gave a faint smile. She said softly, "People stopped coming here, not because of ghosts, but because they were afraid. Afraid of things they never understood, and in that fear, they forgot me." The boy stood there in silence. He realized something important in that moment. The alley was never haunted. It was just forgotten. As he walked back home, the fear inside him was gone. He understood that sometimes the scariest thing isn't darkness or ghosts. It's loneliness. And sometimes, all it takes to remove fear is to understand the truth. In a small neighborhood, nights were often filled with darkness. Power outages were common, and every time the lights went out, the entire area would fall into silence. People felt frustrated and helpless, sitting in their homes, waiting for the electricity to return. The streets would become empty, and the darkness made everything feel lifeless. But one night, something different happened. A small child came outside his house holding a tiny oil lamp. He carefully placed it near his door and lit it. The soft glow of the flame pushed back a small part of the darkness. At first, people noticed, but didn't react. The next night, the child did the same thing again. This time, one neighbor decided to light a lamp too. Then another, and another. Slowly, night after night, more people joined in. What was once a dark and silent neighborhood began to glow with small lights outside every home. The streets no longer felt empty. Instead, they felt warm, alive. One evening, an elder in the neighborhood approached the child and asked, "Why did you start this?" The child smiled gently and replied, "I knew I couldn't stop the darkness, but I thought, maybe I can add some light." Those simple words touched everyone's heart. From that day on, the neighborhood was never the same. It wasn't just a place anymore. It became a symbol of hope and unity. Because sometimes you don't need to fight the darkness. You just need to create light. Sparkles. In a busy neighborhood, there was a small bus stop where people came and went every day. No one really noticed each other. Everyone was always in a hurry. But one rainy evening, something unusual happened. A young boy was standing at the bus stop, completely soaked in the rain. He wasn't holding an umbrella, and he didn't try to find shelter. He just stood there, waiting. People passed by him quickly, some glanced at him, but no one stopped. Minutes turned into an hour. An old man, walking slowly with a cane, noticed the boy still standing there. He felt something wasn't right. He walked closer and asked gently, "Son, why are you standing here in the rain?" The boy looked up, his eyes filled with hope, and said, "I'm waiting for my father. He told me to stay here. He said he would come back." The old man's heart sank. He realized the boy had probably been waiting for a long time. Without saying much, the old man opened his umbrella and stood beside the boy, shielding him from the rain. They both stood there, silently. After some time, the boy looked at him and smiled. "Thank you. At least now I'm not waiting alone." In that moment, the old man understood something deep. Sometimes, people don't need solutions. They just need someone to stand beside them. And even though the rain didn't stop, that night, the boy's loneliness did. Cloud with rain sparkles. In a quiet neighborhood, there was a small house with a single window that faced the street. Every night, at the exact same time, the light in that window would turn on. People noticed it, but no one paid much attention. Except for one girl. She lived across the street and often sat by her own window. One night, she saw a shadow move behind that glowing window. It looked like someone was waving. Curious, she waved back. To her surprise, the shadow waved again. From that night on, it became a routine. Every evening, both of them would sit by their windows and wave at each other. No words, no meeting, just a simple connection through the glass. Days passed, and the girl began to feel less alone. That unknown person became a silent part of her life. But one night, the light didn't turn on. She waited and waited, but the window stayed dark. The next day, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Gathering her courage, she crossed the street and knocked on the door of that house. An old woman opened the door. The girl hesitated, then asked, "Who used to sit by the window?" The old woman's eyes filled with tears. She said softly, "My son, he passed away a few days ago." The girl stood frozen. Then the woman added, "He used to sit there every night, waving at someone. He said it made him feel less alone." Tears rolled down the girl's face. She realized, even without words, they had given each other something priceless. Sometimes, the smallest connections can mean the world. Sparkles. In a small neighborhood, there was an old tree standing in the middle of a dusty playground. Its branches were wide, and its shade covered almost the entire ground. Years ago, children used to play under that tree every day. They laughed, ran, and shared their little secrets while sitting beneath its leaves. But as time passed, things changed. The children grew up. New buildings appeared. The playground became empty. No laughter, no games, just silence. The tree still stood there, quietly. One afternoon, a young boy moved into the neighborhood with his family. While exploring, he found the old playground and the lonely tree. Curious, he walked closer and sat under it. The wind gently moved the leaves, making a soft, whispering sound. It almost felt like the tree was trying to speak. The boy came back the next day and the next. Soon, he started playing there alone. Sometimes he talked to the tree, sharing his thoughts like it was his friend. One evening, an old man passing by stopped and watched the boy. He smiled and said, "You know, I used to play here when I was your age." The boy's eyes lit up. "Really? Under this same tree?" The old man nodded. "Yes, this tree has seen many stories. It remembers every laugh, every moment." The boy looked up at the tree, realizing something special. Even though time had passed, the memories never left. From that day on, the playground slowly came back to life. Other children joined, laughter returned, and the tree was no longer alone. Because some places don't just exist. They remember. Herb Sparkles. In a quiet neighborhood, there was an old house at the corner of the street. Outside that house hung a large, round clock. For years, it showed the correct time, and people passing by would often look at it. But one day, the clock stopped. It froze at exactly 6:15. Days passed, but no one came to fix it. People noticed, but they were too busy with their own lives. Slowly, they stopped looking at the clock altogether. Except for one boy. Every day, while walking home from school, he would stop and stare at the broken clock. He felt strange, like the clock was trying to say something. One evening, he finally knocked on the door of the house. An old man opened it. The boy hesitated, then asked, "Why don't you fix the clock?" The old man looked at it for a moment and sighed. "That clock stopped at 6:15, the exact time my wife passed away," he said softly. "I never had the heart to change it." The boy stood silently, not knowing what to say. After a moment, he gently replied, "But if time stops there, how will new moments come?" The old man looked at him, surprised. That night, he thought deeply about those words. The next morning, the boy walked by again, and for the first time in a long while, the clock was ticking. Time had started moving again. The old man stood outside, watching it with teary eyes. Because sometimes, holding on to one moment stops all the others from happening. And sometimes, healing begins when time moves forward again. Alarm clock sparkles. In a peaceful neighborhood, there was a small house at the end of the street. What made it unusual was its front door. It was never locked. Day or night, summer or winter, the door always remained slightly open. People found it strange. Some thought it was careless, others believed something was wrong. But no one ever asked, except for one curious girl. Every day, she passed by that house and wondered why the door was always open. One afternoon, she finally gathered the courage to knock. "Come in," a gentle voice replied. She slowly stepped inside and saw an old woman sitting quietly on a chair, knitting. The girl hesitated, then asked, "Why do you never lock your door?" The old woman smiled softly. "Many years ago," she said, "my son left home after an argument. He said he would never come back." She paused, her eyes distant. "But I never stopped waiting." The girl listened carefully. "I keep this door open," the woman continued. "So if he ever decides to return, he won't feel shut out." The girl felt a lump in her throat. Days turned into weeks, and she started visiting the old woman often. They talked, laughed, and shared stories. One evening, as they sat together, there was a soft knock on the door. Both of them looked up. The door slowly opened, and a man stood there, tears in his eyes. Sometimes, hope doesn't need noise. It just needs an open door. Glowing Star sparkles,